What's good, y'all? Welcome back to Conversation Piece, and thank you for being here for the third installment of our Emergency Conversation series, where we talk with folks in the community about some extremely pressing, incredibly important issues right here in Indianapolis. My name is Patrick Armstrong. I am your host, and my guest today has over a decade of experience in public service, urban education, community development, fundraising, and philanthropy, and is currently the Director of Family Philanthropy at the Central Indiana Community Foundation, also known as CICF. She provides philanthropic counsel to the Glick Philanthropies, Central Indiana Senior Fund, and African American Legacy Fund of Indianapolis. In addition to the work that she's already doing there, she recently joined the Indianapolis Public School Board as Commissioner of District 4, and that's what we're going to talk about today, and there is a lot to get to. So without further ado, smacking the mic, it is my great joy and privilege to welcome Allissa Impink to the show. Allissa, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. I'm incredibly excited, so thank you for the opportunity.
100%. Just a quick background context. Allissa and I actually met at a pattern event, the last Creative Economy Summits last year. Yep. And I completely forgot that we sat at the same table and had great conversations, but I remember we talked about the importance of our stories and how do we build or how do we utilize models of community care and collective care to build systems that work for us. And I think that was prior to you being elected to the school board. Yeah. And so I'm really interested and excited to kind of see how some of that stuff ties together. But I wanted to start here. You started your career in child and family welfare. Mm-hmm. Was that always the plan for you?
So it was always the plan. Well, first of all, thank you again for the opportunity 100%. To be here. I am truly, truly excited and truly honored. So yeah, it was always the plan for me to work on behalf of community and to serve community. Child welfare, I transitioned into the opportunity. I knew that I had the ability, being from Indianapolis, I knew I had the ability to be able to listen to families, to listen to children, and to ensure that I'm working on behalf of what's best for both of them. So I leaned in as a family case manager, and then I worked my way up to being a supervisor. So my role there was to work in proximity with families to ensure that they were able to receive the opportunity to adopt and or become foster parents of their own families who were in the child welfare system. So what I love most about that opportunity, about eight or so years I was working in that role, and it gave me the skill of intersectionality. One moment I could be working with the parent whose child had been taken away from them. I'm working alongside them. I'm listening to them in regards to the needs and services. Then I'm talking to the foster parent, which could be their family member or not. Then I'm in court, then I'm back at, so it's just, so I had to wear multiple hats. And that opportunity not only gave me patience, but it taught me how to actively listen and to actively serve those who I am, responsible for serving and taking care of.
I love that. And I think I've said this to everybody I've had on for our emergency series, but we're going to have you back for another episode because we're going to dive into that specific aspect. Yeah. I got a lot of questions there. Okay. I love that though, because I think it informs a lot of the work that you did afterwards in public education. Mm-hmm. I was wondering, was there a specific thing that had you make the decision to transfer or transition into education?
Absolutely. So working in child welfare, I unfortunately had a lot of secondary trauma. There was a lot of unfortunate things that I was able to encounter. So I knew it was time for me to transition into an opportunity to be proactive proactive. I had worked with a lot of kids that had suffered from trauma. So I was really well-versed in trauma-informed care. So when I transitioned into teaching, I wanted to obtain my special education license. I had already participated in child and family team meetings. Most to all of the kiddos on my caseload had IEPs, which are called individual educational plans. And I assumed that transition into teaching would be a smooth transition. So yeah, I leaned in. I obtained my teaching license, my special education license. And my first year teaching, I was in a special education self-contained classroom.
Okay. I love it.
Yeah.
I feel like all of that, well, I feel like your time in public education, as far as what I saw, was pretty quick, accelerated. Like you're in the classroom and then it seemed like you moved up a little bit into administration and then continued on to do the philanthropy work that you're doing now.
Right.
To me, I think family services and education are naturally philanthropic endeavors. So like when I look at those things and I hear you share about your experience, I can see that trajectory to what you do now at CICF. I also saw, and we talked about this a little bit at Barista, but you served as the president of the Fletcher Place Neighborhood Association for 5 years when you were there.
Yes.
I was wondering, was there anything specific about that experience combined with all of your philanthropic community work that helped seed the idea to then run for IPS School Board?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yes.
That's a great question. So again, when we were speaking in the coffee shop, I absolutely love Indianapolis.
Yeah.
I am born and raised here. I am in love with my neighborhood, Fletcher Place. And when I had the opportunity to I first became co-president with the amazing Andrea Watts. But yes, in being the president of a neighborhood association gives you a lot of experience in, again, speaking with neighbors and speaking with folks within your community. You are listening to the voices of folks who have lived in the neighborhood for decades. You're also listening to the folks who've lived in the neighborhood recently. Folks in Fletcher Place own homes, they rent. There are also several businesses that we were also in partnership, and we cannot have a thriving neighborhood without having partnerships with all of those involved. So when I was the president of the neighborhood association, it was my job to ensure that that my voice was the voice of the community, was the voice of the neighborhood. And our neighborhood meetings could be very fun. They could also be very, very feisty because where people live is where they live, where they work, where they play, and everyone wants their own community to be able to thrive. Yeah. So that was a perfect transition to being an elected leader, because not only is it my own neighborhood of Fletcher Place, but Fletcher Place is also, we also have amazing neighborhood partners. So Bates Hendricks Neighborhood Association and those who live in Bates Hendricks, Fletcher Place and Fountain Fletcher Neighborhood Association, Fountain Square Neighborhood Association, North Square, Fall Creek Place, the Valley, all of these neighborhoods are interconnected. And all of those neighborhoods represent, some of them represent District 4, which is the district that I represent. So being the president of the neighborhood association, I already had many of those established relationships. So transitioning to elected leadership, it was a tough transition, but it felt smooth for me. It felt very natural, being able to knock on my neighbors' doors. Oftentimes, it was not the first time that I had met them. It was not the first time I had knocked on folks' doors, and it wasn't the first time that I was in proximity to my neighbors. So asking them to, vote for me as far as their school board member was a smooth, still challenging, but smooth transition.
It seems like that's a common theme based on like your career trajectory is like you've found yourself in what some folks would probably call challenging careers. And yet, because of the work that you do and where you're rooted, like it makes the transition to the next thing a little bit more seamless, a little bit more comfortable maybe to do that work. So I love that. I think a lot of people, like myself included, jump from job to job. There is no continuity or we don't see the continuity. And I love to see that continuity in your story. I also wanted to mention, like, you talked about learning intersectionality in your first career in Child and Family Services, and I see that then, especially when you're talking like getting that, learning and understanding that concept at a foundational level in your first job really can set you up for success for something like running for IPS school board or just running for any elected position going forward. So I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, and intersectionality is one of my favorite words, one of my favorite concepts. And the more that folks understand the importance of it, being able to be in different places and spaces and not just but be immersed in the community, like listen and learn and thrive, like that, being able to have that it's just so important.
And I think what's really cool, I love that you named all the other neighborhood associations, talked about the partnerships between them all, like going from individual, like micro level intersectionality to a little bit more macro and seeing communities come together and be connected. Like, I think that is a model for the rest of the state, let alone other places around the U.S. right now, for how groups of people can come together in wherever they might be geographically located to do great things.
I like to call it connected communities. We're not able to move forward without being connected.
Bam, clip. Okay, so thank you so much for sharing. Again, we talked about, love to get the contextual information, and we got a lot more to talk about in regards to that when we bring you back. But I want to dive into IPS. Okay. So recently elected as District 4 Commissioner. Congratulations, first off.
Thank you.
I wanted to start with what IPS is, what Indianapolis Public Schools are. Because as I've been watching the news and taking in information and seeing opinions and all kinds of things come out, I feel like a lot of people, especially those opposed to or who maybe more pro-charter or school choice, don't really understand what IPS is. So I was wondering if you could potentially give us your definition of what Indianapolis Public Schools are and what they are not.
Sure, absolutely. And as we kind of dive into the IPS portion of it, I want to just name that I am speaking on behalf of just myself, not necessarily the majority of the entire district, but in my view and my lens, I think of what most folks might know as a blended family, right? So IPS essentially is a family of schools. Those schools include traditional district schools. They include magnet choice district schools. They include innovation charter schools. And some of those innovation charter schools are what we would say as either they're in LEA, the local education agency, or they're out of LEA, the local education agency. So essentially, if we're speaking about the innovation charter schools within IPS, they operate under a unique governance and funding structure. These schools, they have their own autonomy, and they're different than the traditional public schools, but they remain remain accountable for academic performance and other agreed upon expectations. So what that means is, so within the IPS boundary, I am under the purview of our traditional schools, our magnet choice schools, but not under the purview of the innovation charter schools because they have their own appointed boards. So, some innovation, so we do have some partnerships. So those schools operate independently as their own LEA. So what that means is they manage their own special education services. They receive their own line items of federal funding, and they have compliance with education laws. While they still have a partnership agreement with IPS, they don't rely on IPS for certain district-wide services. But then some of our innovation partners do. Some of our innovation partners are in IPS buildings. They rely on our special education services, transportation, and certain other services that our IPS district supports and pays for. So if you essentially imagine a umbrella or a family of schools, that is IPS district. Like we are a blended family of schools. When you peel back that onion and peel back that layer, it looks different for each different school. But at the end of the day, all of the schools under the IPS family of schools serves students and serves families. Okay,
interesting. So I just learned that you could have charters under the IPS banner.
Absolutely, yes.
So when it comes to something like that, how does legislation like Senate Bill 518, how does that work in conjunction? Because so as far as I understand it, SB 518, it would require IPS to share, I think, up to 57% of their tax revenue income with charter schools. But what I heard you say is that there are charter schools that are already under the IPS umbrella that I'm assuming are already receiving some sort of funding through the tax revenue already. Is that right? Am I reading that right?
Yes. Okay. So recent, and again, I'm still on my trajectory of learning as well, but currently, recent law has passed that shows that when the IPS district passes a referendum, there is a certain percentage of property taxes that goes towards that goes towards charter schools within our district, as well as our innovation partners as well. This current legislation that we're speaking about, legislation like Senate Bill 518, if this bill continues down the path, it will take away resources from IPS. Yeah. So in this case, if this tax revenue is shared, it is going to have impact on families and our, IPS as a district. So a few numbers that I can read off for you is that there will be a 49% of reduction in operations property taxes.
49%?
Right. So within the IPS boundary, when we pay our property taxes, that property tax funding goes specifically towards operations within IPS. So if that funding is shared, it's going to have a 49% reduction in our district being able to offer operations to buildings, being able to operate transportation and those specific services. So that is how some of our innovation partners might be affected, because right now, for some of our innovation partnerships, we are supporting bus routes, we are supporting facilities, we are supporting special education services, we are supporting IT support. So if that operation funding is cut, then that could essentially minimize those services for some of our innovation partners. So ultimately, these potential cuts could cause severe disruptions for our students and for our families, just without having adequate time for proper planning or transition support. So ultimately, bottom line, if these things happen, all of our entities under the IPS family of schools will be affected.
So I feel like, thank you for sharing that. One,
of course, I know it's a lot.
No, I know.
It's very convoluted.
And I think that's what's really interesting to me. And one of the reasons I want to have these conversations is because it sounds like, I think we talked about this with Wild Style maybe, but definitely with Moms for Indiana, that it's almost intentionally obtuse or confusing.
Right.
Which kind of doesn't make sense to me, because at the core of it, I think, and I'm reading a book right now called Original Sins by Eve Ewing. Please check out this book. But at the core of it, which is a little contradictory to what I'm about to say, but at the core of it, schooling is about the kids. And yet when we talk about resourcing, funding, et cetera, like, it doesn't really seem like these particular things have anything to do with the kids, like why we're making the decisions. However, they will be the ones most impacted through these decisions.
Absolutely.
You talked about transportation. You talked about just facilities upkeep. What are other programs that are at risk right now, whether it's from like an SB 518 that causes resources to be taken away from IPS specifically, or whatever the case might be, what other things right now that, from your perspective as a new commissioner, that are under attack at the moment, or like that are at risk of being lost?
Yeah, again, it's a great question, and then this is the advocacy piece that I want to ensure that most folks know, because having this information, I think, is really, really sound. So the passing of this bill could force the closure of 20 to 25 schools within the IPS district. If this bill passes, our district could be forced to eliminate transportation services for thousands of students. So this would include about 55 bus routes, affecting over 3,300 district and charter students.
Damn.
Because we said before that there's a percentage of our innovation schools that utilize IPS transportation.
Right.
So without us being able to have the funding to operate transportation, that could be eliminated for some of our innovation partner schools. Ultimately, it's going to be about a $9 million funding loss beginning in 2028. Again, what's most important is the students that we're serving and the families that we're serving. So these cuts would just cause severe disruption for our students and our families. So yeah, it could be devastating, and something that's going to happen over time.
Yeah.
And again, one of the things that we, as that we've been trying to inform our community is that this funding being split, we are I specifically am not against all schools being funded, right?
Sure.
Like all public schools need to be adequately funded, so then that way all the students within those schools can be served. But if this bill passes, it's not going to solve that problem.
Right.
If you think about having a slice of pizza, right? You have one pizza and you have more and more kids that are coming to the table wanting to have that slice of pizza. What are we going to have to do? You're going to have to slice the pizza, but you're going to have to slice the pie thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. And the outcome of this bill is going to be, not ultimately solving the problem. Each student is going to get a small, thin slice of pizza. And we have kids, they're still going to be hungry.
Right.
My kids would say, well, Mom, can I have some more? But at the end of the day, we're not going to have any more.
Right.
So again, that's what's going to be. That's going to be the outcome of these bills is the fact that it's just not going to be enough. It's not going to solve for the problem.
I love that you bring up this point of these legislative measures that are being or trying to be enacted are not solutions. They're not even stopgaps. They're causing more problems than they're solving. And I read. We were talking about Wild Style earlier.
Yes.
Shout out to Wild Style.
Huge fan.
Released an incredible article about what's going on with IPS and charter schools.
Absolutely.
And he talked about a statistic. He said 1 in 3 charters in Indianapolis have closed since 2001. And we in the city here average about 1 closure in charters per year. And so the reason I'm bringing that statistic up is because you're talking about taking resources away, cutting thinner slices of pizza for our kids, to the point where there's not only is there not any more, but for some kids, there's not any at all.
Correct.
And at the end of the day, from an education standpoint, public schools should be resourced for
adequately
them.
Funded, fully
adequately funded. Exactly. If for whatever reason we were not taking resources away to then split amongst the different pieces of pie, would simply ceasing that, would that allow us to be able to maintain the programming that's offered right now by IPS that you're talking about we're going to lose?
Absolutely. And the question is a really good question, but it goes back to it's so nuanced, right?
Yeah, right.
It's I have been thinking about this question, and it's not one that I can specifically answer cut and dry. I do think it's important to understand that our school landscape, that the IPS, the history of IPS has been constantly changing, and many times forced to change within IPS for decades. And each time our district has been resilient, and it's important to again again, know and understand that, know and understand how the innovation partnerships or the innovation portfolio works. So since 2015, IPS has grown its innovation network partnership to about 30 schools.
Okay.
So yes, that has included, like, that began to kind of slice that pie just a little bit.
Sure.
And through those schools, IPS chose to restart with charter partners. About 3,800 students have transitioned from IPS, LEA, to Innovation Network charter schools. And these, at the time, from previous board members, was a decision made. But again, these 3,800 students are members of the IPS family, but oftentimes this transition is used against IPS to show that we've had enrollment loss.
Oh.
But it's actually not true. An additional 3,000 students are served in IPS Innovation Network charter schools. Our school board intentionally partnered with these schools to be located in IPS-owned buildings. And IPS owns these buildings. IPS maintains these buildings. So again, it's a very nuanced conversation. Yeah. And I think if our community I have seen it time and time again. We've come together, and many folks have sat down and have taken the time to have these nuanced conversations. And I think we need to continue to do that more and more throughout this legislative session.
For sure, gotta keep talking about it. Okay, I got. There was something I wanted to ask here.
Sure.
Okay, yeah. So you bring up I think you bring up a point that has been very loudly brought up regarding some of this legislation and the quote unquote dismantling of IPS.
Yes.
Which is, we are going to take funding from schools that don't meet the enrollment quota that we have set. That's like I feel like that's the talking point that I see a lot is like, because there's not enough kids in your school. That's one of the reasons, like they're going to the charters. But like you just said, that's a huge misconception because They're going to charters within the IPS family.
Absolutely.
So IPS is still taking care of them, and yet they're taking the funding away. So I guess I'm trying to understand, like, when it comes to you have to share this funding, does that funding... I'm trying to make sense of it. Here's a person not in this system trying to make sense of this. Mm-hmm. So the innovation charter partners will lose like transportation access, some of these programs that are closing. And yet, are they going to be benefited from an SB 518 passing? Are they going to be recipients of that tax revenue share, or how does that work?
So essentially, if this bill passes, they'll receive property tax funding, operational funding, but in our perspective, it still could potentially not be enough.
Sure.
And I think what's interesting to understand as well is that, all across the district, it's going to look different for each school.
Right.
So we have some schools that have students that are enrolled, 250 students. We have some schools that have 1,000 students enrolled, but each school is its own, each school just looks different.
Right.
It's not going to be the same
There's
for
no
every single
one-to-one.
school.
Yeah.
No. And that's where we're saying that this bill does not solve for the problem, because it still creates an issue of equity, because there might be one school entity that receives a specific amount of funding. There might be another that receives a different amount. It's not going to all be the same across the board. And ultimately, it's not going to be the solution, because one of the things that we haven't talked about right now is the budget. Our state does have the money to be able to support students. One of the things that we haven't specifically gotten into the weeds about is the public education budget. There is a significant amount of dollars that is going towards school vouchers, which are utilized by private schools.
Right.
And then I'm kind of hopping around a little bit, but there is something called the charter school grant. And right now there is a allocated line, there is an allocated budget for that. What the argument could be, or what the ask could be of our lawmakers is, why don't you just increase the charter school grant? It's something that all of our charter schools receive now, but if this bill passes, the charter school grant is going to essentially be replaced by the property tax revenue that's received, which again is still not going to be enough. So there is a solution to this problem. Our lawmakers could ultimately fund public education, but they're choosing to not do so. They're instead choosing to ensure that the budget is restored within the state versus increasing the charter school grant and fully funding public education. So there could be a solution to this, but instead they are they're going back and making this a divisive issue within our community when it truly didn't have to be that way.
From your perspective, and this is a little less maybe fact related and maybe more of your opinion,
Okay.
but based on everything that you just said, what do you think the reason is for not going through with funding public education in this way? We can do it. We have the money. We have the ability. Why do we choose not to do so?
Yeah. It's something that I'm not always in the head of all of our lawmakers. So, at the end of the day, it's a question that we've asked of them over and over again. I was proud to sit next to our superintendent when we spoke in the Ways and Means Committee in the House recently, as well as in the Senate. And it is that question that we have asked of our lawmakers time and time again. And it's something that not only myself as a new commissioner, but I know that leaders before me have continued to ask that question over and over again. Our current lawmakers who are in the House and who are in the Senate have been fighting on behalf of public education for years now. So it's a question that I continue to ask of my lawmakers as well. I'm proud to be served by Senator Andrea Hundley. I live in District 46, and I know that she, as well as other lawmakers, have been asking that question and have been fighting on behalf of public education for years now.
Yeah. It makes me equally super happy and inspired, but also really sad and angry that really good educators have to leave education to then work in policy, specifically work in policy as a elected official in order to hopefully make the changes and create policy that actually works for kids and when it comes to education.
Absolutely.
When we don't need to do that at all.
Right.
Like we have the ability not to. So I want to say, first off, thank you for stepping into this space and taking on this work. I remember watching the clip that you were referencing at the House or Ways and Means Committee. Fire. We're going to talk about her in a little bit, but just we need people who can stand in the gap, but also are not afraid to speak truth to fact in a lived experience to the people who are running the way that we are trying to live.
Yeah, and one of the things I just want to give a quick shout out to is the power of teachers. So one of the things that I haven't mentioned is that I guess I have, but I too am a former teacher. Senator Hundley is a former teacher. Dr. Johnson is a former teacher. There's a trend here.
100%.
And I think that again, oftentimes listening to our teachers, listening to our educators, listening to those folks who have been on the ground, who have been proximate. Time and time again, it's something that I think that I wish we would listen more to. But the power of teachers is something that is a strong trend.
100%. And it's is that not what you were elected to do? Is listen to the people who elected you and then fight to create a solution based on the conversations that you're having with those people.
Absolutely.
And it feels like a lot of elected officials are once I get elected, doors closed, emails off. I don't have any, not accessible. I will not help you. And yeah, shout out to Senator Hundley, especially because I live in District 46 as well.
Yes.
And just to see someone actually go out into the community and listen to their people, I think is so important. And it's inspiring to see. And you are someone whose literally career is made off of connecting with people, talking to people, and not only that, but utilizing, implementing, internalizing the things that you're hearing from them in the work that you're doing. As you've just been elected, 8 weeks, right now?
About 8-ish weeks or so.
About 8-ish weeks. Not a long time.
I've had 2 official school board meetings.
2 meetings under your belt. You're a veteran. In the spirit of like conversation, listening to the people who elect you, and then fighting for those same people. Mm-hmm. What have you been hearing from folks? Maybe even 8 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And also, what are you hearing right now?
Yeah, I love that. So right now I'm hearing from parents across the district who are deeply invested in the future of our public schools. Again, as a commissioner, I am most proximate to families in IPS district-run schools, as innovation schools operate under their own independent boards. However, IPS and innovation schools, we remain contracted partners, and we, again, work in service on behalf of our students. One of the most significant developments in parent advocacy over these last several weeks has been the creation of the IPS Parent Council. Oh, yep. It consists of over 200 parents right now. Its mission and its vision are still being cemented, but the focus has been clear. It's bringing parents together to advocate for our children and the strength of our public schools. Families within the IPS Parent Council are seeking transparency. They're seeking stability and a stronger voice in decision-making. And I had the pleasure of attending the second Parent Council meeting just yesterday. And again, they are coming together. Because I too am a IPS parent. I've got 3 children under 6 who are in kindergarten, and I have twins who are in pre-K and IPS schools right now. And we are building a stronger voice in decision-making. And the Parent Council is a crucial step in ensuring that their concerns and aspirations are heard. And additionally, I was speaking about teachers. So teachers across the district, especially those in what's called the Indianapolis Education Association, or the IEA, they are actively advocating on behalf of IPS students and teachers. So IEA, as the collective bargaining unit for IPS district-run schools, they also play a critical role in fighting for fair wages, better working conditions, and policies. So I think at some point last week, I was able to attend a wonderful meeting called Marco. It is essentially where the different unions from different districts all come together. So I had the pleasure of sitting down with IEA members last week and, being proximate and having discussions on behalf of teachers and on behalf of kids. So, teachers and families are aligned in their communities to ensure that IPS remains strong. We need our district to be a well-resourced public school system that serves all students equitably.
100%. Obviously, no to all of these like harmful legislations that are coming up. Is there anything specific beyond that particular message from IEA or the IPS Parent Council? Shout out the IPS Parent Council. That came together very quickly. Yeah. Also weathered a controversy of the wrong thing went out, and I think somebody was trying to infiltrate, and it did not work because the IPS Parent Council has been awesome to follow, and I just continue to see great things coming out of that.
Yes.
Is there a specific message that you're hearing over and over again from these groups that stands out beyond or that stands out in comparison to everything else that's being talked about? Because literally there's infinite number of topics, I think, right now on this, and an infinite number of things that people who, as we talked about, we're each can only share from our own lived experience. We can only represent our own perspective. Anything that's that stands out to you from a messaging standpoint that you're hearing from these groups?
Absolutely. It's all across the board, myself included, we oppose these bills. We want our schools to be fully funded and to be fully public schools. Fully funded, fully public is something that has been a strong theme across the board, whether I've been meeting with teachers, whether I've been meeting with parents, whether I've been meeting with, folks within the IPS Parent Council. Soon I'm going to be knocking doors again. It's warming up a little bit. So I'm looking forward to going out to my district just to ensure that I'm meeting everyone where they are. I think what's most important is to ensure that folks are understanding what's happening. Oftentimes, folks are just not quite understanding the nuance of everything. So I want to ensure that I am encouraging folks to come to school board meetings. I am encouraging parents to participate and to advocate. And I am open to meeting any parent, right? Again, the under the umbrella of our IPS family is, again, that blended family. Right. So I look forward to meeting parents of all school types to be able to listen to ensure that their voice is heard. But again, what's most important is that I am advocating for the voice of the district. And right now it has been that we are in full opposition of Senate Bill 518 as it is currently written. And we want to continue to ensure that our schools are fully funded and that they remain fully public.
Love it. In that same vein, and also kind of going back to the Ways and Means Committee hearing, one of the things I didn't love it, but one of the things that stood out to me obviously was the student voice.
Yes.
At that meeting. And I think we talked about it at the beginning. We're going to bring it back here. Like, students are obviously the focus of all this, and yet for whatever reason, the legislation just pushes them to the margin, those voices of the margin, in order to enact whatever it is that they want to enact. What are you hearing from students, or has there been a particular experience or story that's come out from your district in the last 8 weeks that you're like, this really got to me, and also is like indicative of why we stand in opposition, why we are advocating in this way, why IPS Parent Council is a thing now, why IEA is taking the stances that they're taking, thinking about student voice. Yeah. Has there been anyone or any students that like stories or experiences that have stood out to you as like, this is why?
Yeah. And to be completely honest, all of the students that came to testify are all IPS students. Yeah. They are all students under the IPS umbrella, whether they're in an IPS building, whether they're receiving transportation, whether they're receiving IT, technical support, I would encourage folks to go back and listen to the testimonies of all the students, specifically the testimony from the students who attended Short Ridge High School. They spoke a lot about the IB program, and that IB program is world renowned. My daughters right now are attending Center for Inquiry, which is an IB model, and they'll be able to come out of the district with skills and opportunities that they might not otherwise have had if they had not attended, an IPS school.
Yeah.
So I want to uplift all of the voices of the students who took the time to stay at the State House. We were there for 9.5 hours. We all arrived around 1:30, and I walked in my house about 11:30 at night.
Dang.
And all of those students were there to speak on behalf of their school and their experience. So again, don't want to necessarily single out one specific student, because all of our students under the umbrella of IPS are phenomenal.
I love it. We're going to link that meeting in the show notes so you can check that out if you want. But yeah, it's just like, as a new parent myself, I'm thinking a lot about the future and thinking about like, what would I want my kid to do in a situation like this? And to see those kids stand up and wait that long and still have the fervor and the fire and the passion for why this is bad. Kids who have firsthand lived experience in the things that are trying to be dismantled, who are saying this is not good, to have the courage, the maybe not even bravery, but just like the affirmation and support from other people, their communities, to stand up there, sit up there and share that experience, I think is so, so powerful.
Yeah.
And again, it's those voices that tend to get lost in the shuffle of these legislative committees and sessions, because it's just like, well, you can't vote yet or whatever. Like, we find justifications as to why that voice is not, or why a younger person's voice is not important.
Yeah,
and
it was extremely powerful. And, I was poking fun because you have your notes and I have my notes. And I tell you, the students, they just sat down and they just spoke. Yeah. They spoke from their experiences. They spoke from the opportunities that they know that they have. Yeah. So, I, again, appreciate all the students that spoke that day, and we need just to listen. We need to listen to our kids.
We need to listen to our kids. You hear that? People out there that aren't listening to your kids.
We should listen to them.
Allissa, I appreciate everything that you've shared so far. I don't feel like an hour is enough time for this conversation, and yet you've shared a ton of stuff that I can't wait for people to tap into here. As we wind down, I want to touch on, we're coming to end or closing in on the end of the legislative session here. Obviously, the work continues. From your perspective, and I feel like these questions are generally like, what's a 5-year outlook? What's your 10-year outlook? We live in a time where I don't know that you can look beyond even next week, but like for you in your new role as an IPS commissioner, as a parent of IPS students, as just a community member of Indianapolis, for you in this fight, what does even 2 months from now look like?
Yeah, I wish I wish I had a crystal ball, and I wish that I knew.
What do you hope that it
but
looks
what
like?
I hope, again, I mentioned that my daughters right now are in pre-K and in kindergarten. Next year, they'll be in kindergarten and first grade. I want my children to graduate from IPS district, from IPS. So the hope that I have is that we continue to keep marching, we continue to keep advocating. In 6 months, what I would love to be able to see is, me wearing the hat as parent and wearing the hat of mom, and enjoying my kindergartner's first day of school and enjoying my first grader's first day of school, and walking into a thriving, well-supported, well-resourced school. And I want that for all of our parents. I want to do the same as my children are going into middle school and as my girls are going into high school. I don't want to think about what could that opportunity be if our district is dismantled. So again, that's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm fighting for and advocating for every time my feet hit the ground. And that's something that I'm going to continue to do day after day.
I love it. One of the things I really appreciate about what you've been sharing and how you share it is leading from your own experience and couching it in collective, communal desire for other parents, for other people in your community. I think as I was sitting here in this conversation, I love how you tee it up. It's like, this is what I want, and I want it for all of us. One of my favorite, maybe it's a quote, I don't know. I heard it I was producing a podcast and the guest shared, like, I don't want to be the boat at the top of whatever by myself. I want all of our boats to be up there with us. Like, even if I win, I don't want it to just be I won. I want it to where we can all win.
Yeah.
And when we talk about conversations like the seat at the table, it's like, when you get at the seat at the table, that's great. What are you doing when you sit down? Are we still fighting? Are we still doing that thing? Are we still about the community that we advocated for and that probably helped us get to the seat or get to the table? And I feel like just hearing you share about your experience and then couching it in that community, in that intersectionality, is really inspiring. In the same way that I get inspired by Senator Hundley anytime she says anything, I feel like I'm receiving that same inspiration from you. And I just really appreciate the way and the passion that you speak about this work.
I mean, that's what public education is. I mean, public education it has a history of always being a connected community. It has a history of public education being led by teachers, being led by community, being led by parents. And it's something that we need to continue to do. It needs to be, led by this strong, connected community.
Love it. Connected community. That's the vocabulary I'm going to be using now. Allissa, I have a few more questions before I let you go.
Okay.
And again, we're going to have you back for a numbered episode where we dive into a lot more things. But as we close it up here, we have a recurring segment on the show called Give Them Their Flowers, where we ask our guests to shout out someone or some entity that they feel deserves their flowers in this moment. So, Allissa, I wanted to ask you, who would you like to give their flowers to today?
Yes, I was looking forward to this question, and I am excited to give my flowers or give flowers to Dr. Aleesia Johnson, who is our IPS superintendent. And I wrote something down because I want to just get this clear.
Hit it.
Dr. Johnson has demonstrated an unwavering commitment to educational equity and excellence through her bold and visionary leadership. Dr. Johnson's leadership is marked by a deep understanding of the complexities within public education and a steadfast dedication to making difficult but necessary decisions for the betterment of our district. She's led IPS with integrity, with transparency, and an unrelenting focus on student success. We spoke a lot about intersectionality, and for the last decade, she has been able to bring stakeholders together. She's been able to bring families together, educators, community leaders, and policymakers. And that has strengthened IPS as a district. And it's something that, under her leadership, she has become a model for other urban districts seeking to implement equitable and transformative education reforms. So I want to just wholeheartedly give my flowers to Dr. Aleesia Johnson.
I love that. I feel like we should have a certificate in a frame and be like
put
Dr.
some applause
Aleesia
in
Johnson,
there.
like the Lifetime Achievement Award. That is
She deserves it.
When she receives that from whatever entities want to bestow that honor upon her.
Yeah.
She could do worse than having you tap you for an introduction.
And just one more thing I just want to add off the cuff. When I first transitioned to becoming a school board commissioner, I wanted to take the time to meet with, yes, Dr. Johnson, but Dr. Johnson works under an entire entity of staff and team. One of the things I had the pleasure of meeting with every single chief, every single leader within the administration, and there is so much intellectual capital under Dr. Johnson's leadership. So yes, I want to give my flowers and give the full bouquet to Dr. Johnson, but if I could then take that bouquet back and give every single flower to the team that works under her and works alongside her, again, there's so much intellectual capital that is my and is our IPS. There's a new hashtag going around that's saying I am IPS, and it's all encompassing Dr. Johnson and her team that walks alongside her.
I love it. We ain't got to take the bouquet back. We'll give each one of those people their own bouquet.
Yeah. Again,
100%.
There's so much intellectual capital within the district.
Intellectual capital, connected community. Dr. Johnson leading the way and with an incredible team. Again, going back to the idea of community, it's the year community on the show. Like, we don't do it alone. We don't do it in a vacuum. It takes all of us, and it takes, I hate to say it takes a village, but it takes a community to make it really work. Thank you for sharing that. Shout out to Madeline McKinnon, Frida's Flowers, Frida'sFlowerIndy.com for your floral needs. And again, shout out to Dr. Johnson. We're going to get you on the show. Two more questions before I let you go. We've talked about a lot of things. And I think a lot of it is like fact-based. A lot of it is like, this is what we're doing currently. And there has been a little bit of like, join the fight. There's some of what you can do. But I wanted to ask you specifically for teachers right now that are trying to navigate these waters. Is there any advice that you have for them as we approach end of legislative session, where any number of things could happen in the next 6 weeks, and then over the next year, 2, 3, 4 years as we navigate whatever society might look like?
Yeah, I'm smiling because I love this question. So as a former teacher, I know firsthand how challenging it can be to navigate this ever-changing landscape of public education. So a few points that I wrote down is staying informed and staying engaged. So policies and decisions impacting your classroom are constantly evolving. So staying connected to IPS board meetings. Our next board meeting is Thursday, March 20th. Okay. So ensuring that folks come and folks show up. At our IPS board meetings, we give updates. We have school level discussions. So show up and be a part of that opportunity so you can advocate effectively for yourself and for your students. The next thing I would want to say for teachers is to lean on your community. Whether it's through the IEA or in informal teacher networks, finding colleagues who share your concerns can provide support. So I firmly believe in collective action. It's absolutely powerful. And then building relationships. So putting my parent hat on. Parents are some of the strongest allies in pushing for better resources, pushing for stability, and pushing for transparency. So I would encourage teachers to engage in parent parents, whether it's through, again, the IPS Parent Council or school-based initiatives. And then lastly, as we spoke before about keeping the focus on students, no matter the politics or the shifting policies, teachers can work in classrooms. The work that our teachers do, it remains the foundation of public education. As I speak to teachers, your students, our students, my daughters, your kiddo here in the next couple of years, we need teachers. Their dedication, their success is what drives meaningful change.
I love it. I saw you using the camera a little bit too,
because
you got to let them know. 100%. I love all four of those points, all build together, intersect with each other to create a great foundation for moving forward and navigating this. So thank you for sharing that. Shout out to all teachers who are doing it right now, who are in the thick of it. I don't want to say it sucks, but it kind of sucks right now. But y'all are the reason that kids continue to show up, can show up, and the reason that community is showing up right now. So thank you to all teachers out there for doing the things that you're doing. And hopefully we continue to fight and make the changes that you need to do the best work in the classroom. I have a sneak second to last question that I'm going to sneak in there. We were talking about at barista before. You've put your parent hat on a number of times.
Okay.
We were talking about a barista before. What does it look like to have balance in your life? And I love what you said because I think it was very blunt and candid. And I think that not a lot of people expect a nice bowed answer to something like this. I was wondering if you could share what that looks like for you.
Okay. Balance does not exist for me. It does not exist. I think maybe historically folks have encouraged us to have balance or to find balance. Again, I have 3 children under 6. I have a kindergartner and I have twins who are 5 years old, all girls. And I do not have balance. But what I do is I juggle priorities. And, every single day, when my feet hit the ground, I might not be the best mom, or I might not be the best, partner to my husband, but each day I try to do my best to juggle priorities. So last Friday, I was an amazing mom because my feet hit the ground, and my only responsibility last Friday was to take Alice to a field trip, and be a chaperone on Friday. We all went to the Children's Museum and it was amazing. So that's what my priority was for that day. My priority for this day is to come here and to show up, to go work. And then we have a working session on behalf of the school board this afternoon.
Okay.
This morning, my kids missed the bus. It just happened. I don't know how it happened, but it happened. So again, it is not my job to have balance. Balance will not exist for me. Oftentimes, my husband, Matt, and I say that it's just a season. So it's just my season right now to juggle priorities. Yeah. And then maybe next season, I'll figure out what balance is like. But right now, I am juggling priorities and loving every minute of it.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. There is this narrative that you have to have balance, or find it. Like, if you're stressed out, just find balance in your life. Find the work-life balance. And sometimes it's not possible. I think it's a privilege that people don't understand is a privilege.
Right.
And if you get the opportunity to even access it for one moment, like, great. But for some people, like, you don't have even moments to do that.
Yeah,
so,
but these priorities that we're juggling, like, we love those. So I'm not juggling the priorities that I like, just that I don't like. I'm juggling the priorities that I'm passionate about. Right. So I'm passionate about being a mom. I'm passionate about being a good wife and partner. I'm passionate about being a good school board member. I'm passionate about being a good community advocate. So the things that I'm juggling, I'm passionate about, and it's a core value. So yeah, I'm juggling it, but I'm juggling something that is extremely important to me.
I am here for it all day. Allissa, thank you so much for coming through and sharing all of this here in this last hour. Last question before you leave. Okay. How do we, the listeners, the audience, the people viewing this right now, two things. How do we best support the work that you do at IPS and support the IPS stuff that's going on right now and everything there? And then how do we support you, Allissa, follow you, find you, all of the things once we're done here.
Okay, absolutely. So the best way to show up is just, again, to show up, advocate, learn, attend our school board meetings.
Thursday, March 20th.
Join the IPS Parent Council. Just ensure that you are following along to what's occurring. Ask questions. And again, hold our lawmakers accountable, hold our school board accountable. So that's I think the best thing that you can do. Lock arms in arms, join, be a part of that connected community. And then again, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. I'm not great at social media, but I do the very best that I can. So on Instagram, I am Commissioner Impink, District 4. And then again, my personal page, Allissa M. Impink. If you want to see a lot of pictures of my daughters and my family, you can follow that. But also being at our school board meetings. So hop onto our My IPS website, hop under school board, and you can see where all of our school board meetings are publicly announced, and just show up. I look forward to seeing you all there.
Show up, go to the school board meetings, stay informed, stay engaged, and activate yourself. Now is the time. And you could do worse than showing up to a school board meeting with Allissa and learning a lot from her. So I'm smacking my cards because it's about time to wrap it up. But Allissa, thank you again so much for being here, for sharing, for being vulnerable, and just for taking the time. You're a busy, busy person. And when I reached out, you got back to me immediately. Like it was an honor for me to even make the ask. So thank you.
It was a priority. So juggling priorities. I'm like, heck yeah, I want to do that.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for providing the space and the opportunity to speak about education. Sometimes education policy is not sexy, but it's important.
It is important. And we're going to keep talking about it. More emergency episodes coming up because I don't want to say we're in a lot of emergencies. I've said that a lot in this episode, I think. I don't want to say stuff, but it's happening. So we're going to keep talking about it because that's what we want to do on the show. Allissa Impink, we're going to have all of these things located in the show notes. If you want to find out about new board meetings, learn about the IEA, all of the stuff that we've talked about, you can find that linked here. New episodes of this show every Tuesday, and whenever we have someone like Allissa come on that we need to have an important conversation, stay tuned for that. ConversationPeacePod.com for the archives and everything else like merch, at Conversation Peace Pod and all the social media platforms. And last but not least, the Open Door. Make sure you check that out because it's another way that we can have community conversations like this. For everyone here at the show, John Overton and Popular Rapture on the mics, Mike Lee and Mike Lee Productions on the cameras. Shout out to Pattern, Indy, and shout out to the Studs for this space. Shout out to Allissa, shout out to IPS and the board and everybody doing this work right now. Shout out to Madeline Friedis Flowers, and shout out to me, Patrick Armstrong, your host. This has been myself, and this has been Conversation Piece, the emergency conversations. See y'all soon.